So this video has been made to try and help simplify the bitch spay. Several things we do to try and make it less difficult, one of which is using the Carmelts, which is a clamp that's very atraumatic, so it doesn't damage the ovarian pedicle when we apply it, and if we have to move it, there won't be damage to the ovarian pedicle. The other thing is correct breakage of suspensory ligaments, and most importantly, safely, how to break the suspensory ligaments. Also, we're going to use the Miller's. Miller's is important on the ovarian pedicle because you don't get the bounce back you get with a surgical knot. And then finally, we do something slightly different. We actually separate the uterus to make everything more accessible. So try and keep our incision fairly small. You only need it big enough to get your finger in to hook the uterus. And then what we tend to do is trim the fat away rather than just blunt dissect, because when you're applying the ovarian, the Carmelts, the ovarian pedicle, the fat can bulge up and get stuck. And so it's better if it's actually trimmed away at this stage. So we're just nibbling the fat away so we can find the linear elbow. As you can see here. Just make sure there's no fat, so when we grab it, we're grabbing muscle and not fat. That's fine, take a little bit of fat away there. So it's important that the scalpel blade handle is parallel to the body when you do stab incision to keep everything safe. I tend to use 2 forceps to help me get the linear elbow in the right spot. It's very easy to miss the linear elbow, so quite often you can just let a few millimeters either side of it off, which is frustrating. So let's have a look. So it's just gone through fine there. So extending with scissors. People sometimes use blade, reverse blade. I prefer the scissors. I'll just sort of lift up and just do a little nick like that. The other thing people do sometimes is use the forceps. So for example, they'd lift up, put the forceps in, and then cut along. What I tend to find with that is it's sort of, you fall short on the muscle, whereas when you just lift the muscle itself and cut, it tends to be, you have a bit more control. So just following that linear elbow down. Okay, so into the abdomen. Occasionally you'll get like this cling film sort of bit just as you go in. You just need to break that with your finger. So going down the body wall, getting to the vertebra and making sure all intestine is behind us. Fairly sure that's intestine, but I'm just going to check because it was in the uterine place. Actually, it's uterus. So some uteruses can feel like intestine, so it is good to check, because I thought I had intestine there, but obviously the uterus. Best way to check it definitely is look for a bifurcation, and then you know for sure, or look for an ovary. Now with ovaries in dogs, they tend not to come out very easily. So as you can see, it's down here. So we have to push down to get it. We either go down, pinch and pull it up, or we can do this technique where we push the skin down and roll over. Just to show. So again, we're pushing on the skin here, downwards, like that. And once it's there, we then replace it with our thumb, roll over and grab the ovary. Now we can only break suspensories once we've got hold of the actual ovary. I'm just going to tweak her up a bit. Pushing down on the skin, roll over to get the ovary, and then feel the kidney one. That ligament's taut. Usually it's slack, the kidney one. And then the suspensory, just get to the base of it and you literally just press on the insertion to the rib. Like, if you follow that technique, going deep down and not this twinging twanging, then it won't take long before you can break suspensories in like 1 or 2 seconds, especially this side, the right side of the dog, because that's thinner. The other side, the left side, is a bit thicker. But if you use that technique, it's really safe because you're far down away from the vessels, and also it's far easier. You need like a little bit of force to break it. Okay, so we've got our ovary here, we've got the broad ligament. We want to make a window. We want it deep because we want the Miller's knot to go deep, and we don't want to go near the big vessels. Like, it's almost formed its own window for us. So I'd probably use that. So it's away from the big vessels, it's nice and safe, and it's quite deep. Right, apply the Carmel clamps. The idea of these are atraumatic, so we can move them around and not worry about damaging the pedicle. So literally just put it straight under the ovary and hold the Carmels like that. Now hold your ovary and just walk the Carmels down. Check nothing's in it. Down a bit more. Check nothing's in it. And then maybe that little bit more. And we've got nothing stuck in there. Okay, so we've got clearance for the ovary about 1 inch, which is good, because the idea is we're going to put a Miller's in, raise a clamp and put another Miller's in. I tend not to stress about crush beds. I always find crush beds are either disappear quickly or they've been made that roughly that they bleed, so I don't really use crush beds. So this is where we separate the uterus. The ovary's there, we put one clamp just behind the ovary there, and then we put the next clamp next to it there. And now we'll trim between. So nothing's going to bleed because the clamps are on. But now, because of that separation of the ovary, we can see the pedicle far better. So it'll make life easier for us. So I'm just going to use Vicryl equivalent, PGA. What I find sometimes is just soaking it in alcohol actually helps the Millers slip out better, so you don't get like a loop stuck. So this is start position, we've wrapped it round, start position for the Millers. Fingers there, thumbs ready to hold across. So we make a cross, we hold across. Just go around again, and we do an identical cross and hold across. So now we've got 2 strands here, 2 strands there. We'll go through there, grab the tail, and bring the tail back the way it was, which is there. So that's the Miller's formed. Now we just keep it loose. And you can see here, we're just going to nudge it down. Because if it ties, we're tying it there near the clamp, it's not going to dig in, it's not going to pinch in. So I'm just dropping it lower. And we'll drop it on this side as well, a bit there. Now I always keep rotation on the clamp, so when I tie it, it's going to stay down there. So I rotate the clamp and use something forceps here. So always work close in, so you're not pulling up the Millers and raising it, and just make sure it's nice and tight. I try and put as much as the can of the thread in the needle holders, so it's less likely to snap. So that's our Millers, and then we'll just do 6 ones. I have a tendency to place the ligature, let go of the ligature, and then tighten the ligature. Always be aware, it's better to use your shoulders, pushing and pulling, rather than your lats like that, because again that can pull up on that, put stress on it, and you don't want to sort of put stress on some of these dogs because it will tear it. So I'd avoid that and just go in nicely here with a push and pull. If that's more than 6, one more for luck. Okay, so I'll keep these tails short so they don't get in the way of the next one. So we placed our first millers below the clamp. Now, because we use the uterine separation technique, we can actually check this millers. So I'm going to take this off. This is where the ovary is at the top. And then I'll take it off at the bottom here. And if obviously the ligature was not good, we'd have blood coming out. So we've got the luxury of checking the first one ourselves. And no, we know that one's okay, so we're going to put another one just to be on the safe side. And basically I've raised the clamp, so the next one is going to be a bit higher up, but we're well clear of the ovary. So wrap round. Make your cross, round again, second cross, pull the tail back the way it was, so there we go. Okay, so with this again, we don't want it up against the clamp, otherwise it's not going to be not going to dig in and be tight. So we just need to nudge it off from the clamp. So I nudge it to just there really, and there. So I'll put something in just to hold, right in that position. And I'll just tighten the millers there. Like, possibly done in the region of maybe 20,000 bitch spays. And I've only once ever has the ovarian pedicle cheese wide. That's using multifilament, PGA, Vicryl, Polysorb, those sort of materials. So you've always got to go 100%, and if you see it's actually cutting through fat, that's good, keep going. You always need these knots full strength. Most important knots there are regards tightness. I've lost count again, I'll do one more. There we go. Okay, so the other thing to mention is with the pedicle, we can do some rotation like that, but what we can't do is pull on it like that. Sometimes I see students like this, yanking it up to try and get the things around. Don't, just rotate, that's all you can really do. So now we'll take the ovary off. So the only time I cut with the blade is so I can get flush to the clamp. So that's one ovary down. Now if you're going to hold it, when you release it, make sure you're not holding the ligature, make sure you're not holding below a ligature. The only area you can hold it is up here, safely. And if that ligature was there, I probably wouldn't hold it because I'd be worried about damaging the tissue and the ligature falling off. But we've already checked the first one, so we know it's not going to bleed. Well, you just want to hold it there and release. And she goes. Okay, so now we've got the uterus with the broad ligament. So I tend to always ligate these. I'd rather have no bleeding than some ooze from the broad ligament. I'd prefer it that way. So I made my winder up. I'm going to place the clamp quite high up so we're not having tension on this bit of broad ligament when we tie it. So because I've double clamped it, that means I can cut it, get the uterus out of the way, and now just tie off the broad ligament. here. If you want to know an idea on how vascular it is, you can release the other side of it, which is that. Oh no, it's not that one, this one. Because it'll have the same blood supply going through, so it doesn't look very vascular. So just a surgeon's would be sufficient. So, see how we kept it loose so it's not taut. So less chance of it breaking. If you clamp really low down, it's quite under some tension, so there's a chance of it breaking. And that's simple surgeons. It's tight. Always remember with your surgeons, your first one is very important because it tightens the surgeons more. So if you're using surgeons on a big, say, ovarian pedicle, not Miller's, you're going to get this bounce back of the suture. So when you tighten it, it then releases itself. So the first one you put on is really important to be super tight to tighten the surgical knot below it. Okay, so that's our bit of broad. Not too worried about it because we know the other side is not bleeding. So we'll just release that. Bob it in. And now the other side. So we're going to try and use this to find the other side. This one's rather obvious. Well, otherwise you'd be putting some tension on this and going down here to find the bifurcation. And once you've got it, you'd then whittle your finger this way and pull it up here, because you're not going to be able to pull it up this way because that's where it's attached. So you have to follow it around and pull it up that way. Like I say, this one's there for us. Occasionally you'll get the spleen sort of round it and you have to shuffle the spleen out of the way. So again, the ovary's not coming up, so we have to push down to get it. So, see what now, I'm just going to push on the skin that way. So I'm not pulling it up, I'm pushing down to get it. And now we've got it, we can break the suspensories. So I've got it with my finger and thumb, putting some tension on it. And then as we go in, we're leaning right back. I can feel the kidney one. I can feel the suspension going past the kidney, so I'm just pressing on it at the base, as far down as I can to keep it safe. And also it's far easier to break it when it's farther down. It's like pulling up a weed. The closer you are to the root, the easier it is to pull the weed up. So there we go, we've got the ovary up there now. It gives you massive exposure in some dogs. Just use a plug to keep all the dobbins out of the way. And here you can see your major squirty vessels that we don't want to disrupt here. So the window needs to go to the right of those, and also you want it deep down so we can actually make sure we get the Miller's low. So I'm feeding it up over here. Put my thumb finger there, there's no veins vessels, so I'll go there, nice and deep, and then extend it up. I find some students go really close to the vessels, and I don't understand. There's no reason to risk that. Always give yourself a bit more room past the vessels. Respect them at all times. Okay, so we're going to place the clamp. Like I said before, just loosely put it in. Hold the ovary. Drop it, hold it while you're holding it. Drop it a bit more. And then we'll go with that. We've got masses of clearance there. So the ovary's here. So we've got the car knot here. Occasionally your kidney will pop up here because the kidney ligaments are attached. But don't worry about it. I've never really had an issue. Just ligate and yeah, don't really worry about it. So we're going to separate the uterus to make life easier. So one clamp just above the ovary. The other clamp alongside, and then we'll trim between, and there we go. So our pedicle's there, ready to tie off. Just going to reposition that clamp there. So we've got nice visibility, see the pedicle. So let's get our millers on it. So just wrap round under the clamp. There we go. And then start position, fingers there, thumbs ready to hold the crosses. So we make a cross, hold across, go around under the clamp again. Make a second cross, hold that. And then the two strands go through, get the tail, bring it through and back the way it was. There. Okay, so I'm going to keep it loose so we can nudge it down. So nudge it further down. Okay, it's nicely away from the clamp. And now remember to put something in just to keep this clamp rotated. So, same in the cat spay when you're doing your surgeons under the ovary, rotation of the clamp can prevent you catching something in it. So just concentrate on tightening it. We don't worry if it cuts through the fat. Putting as much suture and needle holders as we can. So that's our millers, we'll do our 6-1s now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and do about 100 videos of different bitch spays. So you get more of a feel for difficult ones, deep chested ones, fat ones, old ones, thin little ones, fat little ones. So I'll try and get you a variety of them all, but basically this is the technique we'll use and stay with. Because we like life simple. And I've lost count. Got one more for luck. Okay, so we've got millers in. Whatever you do, don't start pushing around here trying to examine it, because what you'll do is when you push down there, you'll be pushing on the vessels and you could cause damage. You don't need to start looking around there. There's no need for it. There's no need for the risk. Tail short. So you want to check it. You want to check it on the other side. Here, it's really pinched in. If you did get a little bit of this sort of umbilical fat or something here, it comes away very easily later on. So you check it there, and you see how nice and tight it is there. So we'll do our test. Take that clamp off, a bit of blood's going to come out. And then we'll release the calm out. Reapply it. So we know the first one's good. It's not bleeding. I'll put a second one in. Around the clamp. Bring in position. That's your start position. Always getting that first. Cross, round. Second cross. Through for the tail. Tail back the way it was. There. The other thing to note is you not catch any of this in it. See, like I've done there. So I've wrapped it round and accidentally caught upon this. So we just need to make sure that comes away. There we go. So again, we want it tied away from the clamp, otherwise it won't get tight. So we'll do a nice rotation. The other thing to stress on is also when you're doing your tightening your ligatures, that you're working down here, there. I've had quite a few new grads and they've said they can't tie tight ligatures, and it's because they're out here like this at an angle and it just won't dig in, won't go tight. The closer you are, the tighter it will go. And also when you're working close in, it's safer, because if the suture does break, the pull is less than out there. Sort of here, so it can cause less damage. Okay, that's one. Like I say, regards cheese wiring ovarian pedicles with the PGA Vicryl Polysorb, I've never known it, so I don't know about monofilaments. There could be a chance of monofilaments, more like cheese wire. I haven't used it enough on ovarian pedicles to be sure. Okay, so that's our second one. And then again we can check it. Here, pinched in. I'll take off the ovary with the blade. And again, if you're going to hold it with something atraumatic. Make sure it's not near the sutures or below the sutures. There we go. The other thing you'll note is when you break suspensories, see how it hasn't gone shooting back in, because we've broken the suspensory correctly, it just sits there. So if you have got an issue, it's far easier to get it out. Okay, so plug out. Just do the other part of the broad ligament, so we get rid of all this fat, so when we ligate off the uterus, it's less fat when you have in the clamp. So extend the window up, clamp high, so it's not under tension. The technique is very much get everything out of the way and improve visibility, see what we're doing. So like now we can see the broad nicely, the uterus is out of the way. And then we just need the surgeons on it. Rotate the clamp, so it's not going to form near the clamp. And then I always do 6-1s after. I encourage people to do 6-1s because you might be working with a real cheap PGA suture material, and when the ones, the really cheap ones, unravel, you can literally do what you think is a nice tight knot and then look at it in a few minutes later and 2 of your ties have unraveled. So if you're using cheap stuff, it's essential to put more throws on. Okay, so we'll put that back. Now we're going to do the uterus. So we're going to go with the surgeons first. Find the suture over here. Should do it. So the reason we do the surgeons first is it's the least likely to cheese wire, less likely to cheese wire than the millers. Like, doesn't happen a lot, but definitely in some cases it cheese wires, and you end up having to go right near the cervix to close it. But if you've sort of put surgeons on and then the miller cheese wires is here, at least you've got surgeons on. So that's our first one. We want to keep some space, but don't want to keep loads of space because don't want excess dead tissue. So millers, that's a different angle. So just again concentrate on your start position, finger over the finger, thumb ready to make and can hold crosses. So make a cross, and we go again, make our second cross. 2 strands go through, tail and back the way. Okay. The other thing as well, just to make sure that both the 2 loops are side by side and there isn't a gap between them. So, now that demonstrates the cheese wire. I wasn't putting that much stress on it, but damn. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this now is just finish it off. I didn't think she was going to be a cheese wire one, but there you go. So if you imagine we put it first there and it cheese wired, we'd be in a lot more stress than we are now. And then I'm just going to put a transfixer in, 2-strand transfixer I call them. Let's try and use a straight needle because the straight needle helps you predict where you're going to come out. Threading it can be the challenge. On, down. Yeah. Okay, so the 2-strander, the function of this is to tie off the vessels, uterine vessels. So take it through the middle. Take it through the middle here. And then out to the other side. And then once you've got it out, make sure both strands are equal length. Cut out your needle. And then you work out which side goes with which. So when we pull this one moves. So that's going to be this side. And this is going to be the other side. And then we just do nice tight sergens. Like I say, the reason we're doing this is for the uterine vessels. See how that's just cheese wired through that uterus. Go, so lucky that first sergens. See, it's cheese wired the uterus, but not the vessels. So this way now, just doing exactly the same thing. The idea of this compared to what most people regard as an old transfixer, that's straight through the uterus, is because both sides are equally tied off. With a normal transfixer, your first side's great, it's tied off, but then the other side's wrapped round, and the knot that's incorporated into it just means your other side doesn't get such a good closure as it would than doing 2-stranded like this. Okay, so that's that. I'll just put a little swab here so the uterus doesn't fall back in. I'm just going to cut it. Okay, no bleeding. Just give her a minute there. So closure of the muscle, I'm actually using catgut, partly because of I've got a lot to go through with catgut, but also I quite like the knots. The knots, you can control the tension more, so when you're doing the muscle, sometimes PGA is like too loose or too tight, trying to get in between is a bit more difficult, whereas catgut, you can sort of control the tightness to how you want it. So I'll load up needle holders. And we'll just have a little look inside. Don't want to see anything bad going on. No, it looks okay. See the bladder's there. That looks good. So really important, especially if you've got a spleen there, going like this straight away to try and get it through is not that good, because you could accidentally damage the spleen with your teeth on your forceps. So use 2 forceps, one, pick it up, and then you can safely get it to exactly where you want it and go through. Right. Opinions on grubbing the peritoneum vary and change quite a lot. So whatever you think you're happiest with. So again, like I say, not control. We don't want it really tight. So 1, 2, and we'll just bring it together snug. So it's just together snug. If you are using catgut and it's snapping on you, it probably means you're pulling too tight. You're making the ligatures too tight, you're pulling too much. So if you get one at the bottom, and it's worth getting one at the top now while you've got good access. So again, I'm using both forceps, keeping it safe. Lifted the muscle up so I can't pierce anything. And then a lot of people stress about this fat. See this umbilical fat here. Just ignore it, go through it. Don't worry about it. As long as it doesn't sit between the muscle, it's okay. Because if it obviously sits between the muscle, it's going to prevent the good healing. So you might want to fast forward this bit till we get to the closure of the fat. Do simply interrupt it because with some students, unfortunately, when we're using continuous, 2 of the shelter dogs opened up just a few years ago, and I always promised them after that we'd do simply interrupted. Because obviously somebody can't be there with them 24/7. So that's the sort of distance I'd be putting in. I'm probably on the side of paranoid with my surgery. Hopefully not too paranoid, but I'm more inclined to put that extra ligature in, or that extra tie or throw or whatever. Cautious is probably a better word for it. So like I say, the length incision doesn't have to be big at all. At the end of the day, you're making life harder for yourself. You only need enough, really, room to get your finger in to hook the uterus up. And if you've got a big incision, you've got loads of intestine, everything else bulging out, getting in your way. And also, obviously, it's better for the dog. The smaller the surgical incision. I'm sure I would appreciate a small incision if we were getting abdominal surgery. So like I say, there's fat that's in there lurking. Like, regards being fast, yes, to be fast you've obviously got to certain corners. I'd say safety is more important than being fast. Believe in yourself as well. Don't sort of second guess everything or keep checking something. Once you sort of checked it once, it's okay, then leave it at that. That should do for our muscle, I think. Okay, so the fat layer, we're going to do simple continuous for the fat layer. Very important the knot is hidden. So we're going to form the knot under the fat. So we'll just go over, get the fat, deep superficial. And this is something I have to do because otherwise I always pull it out. Pull it all the way through, so if I do that, it stops me doing it. And then we're going to do a mirror image, so it's superficial deep. So fat. So it's not the fat layer of the skin, it's the fat layer that's separate. Okay. So we've got our knot, it's formed under the skin, under the fat. But the most important thing ever is once you've done that knot, your first pass is, let's unravel this around my hand. The first pass is going to be deep superficial, so it keeps that knot deep. Go in. So you see knots then just under there, and then you can just go back on yourself. Just really, it's not a holding layer. I'll show you another trick in a minute. So, just going down, continuous pattern. And then what you can do to help reduce dead space is go through your fat, lift up your muscle, take a little nick of the muscle. Then we're going to go too deep, let's go through the fat side. And it helps sort of close any dead space. Like that's sort of up to you what you want to do really. Obviously risk benefits. The risks are going to be that you could go too deep through the muscle. Regards benefits, you tend not really to see seromas post-surgical unless you've got these massive incisions with lots of undermining and blood dissection. So I'll bring it to the end. So we're going to form a surgical knot. We've got to think about the tail of the knot getting in the way. So what I do then is actually go back up a little bit. So I've just taken it a bit further up. And then just form surgeons. Okay, take the tail off completely. And now, because we sort of went back a bit, we're going to get this knot to go like that. So to do that, just really need to go in deep here and come out intradermal position, about there. So you see how your knot's now there, so there. Right, intradermals. I always say 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So lift up and take a bite just below the skin edge, making sure you're not coming through to the skin, and then go back on yourself. So we'll go through here, get a nice bite. We haven't gone through the skin. Okay, to the other side. Always try and hold your needle close to tip, you've got more control. So that's where we last went through with the suture, so we're just going back to that point there, going through. Again, back to where the other suture is. We're getting towards the end. When we get to the end, we want to be leaving like a little hole, if we can, because that's where we're going to bury the knot. Either finish with the surgeons or Aberdeen. So I'm pretty much to the end there. Okay. So the question is whether we go here or go for another bite. I'm actually going to go for another bite. Trying to get a small grab. Okay, it's not come through. So I'll go with that. So I'll do the Millers to show you, so I can, sorry, the Aberdeen, so give you some tips. So that's how you start. Go through, grab this becomes the new loop, and then shift it down here. Tighten it. So grab this becomes a new loop, and then feed it down again, like that. And you can sort of spread your fingers and pull on this to tighten. New loop, feed it down. Now whether you're going to get it sort of bouncing back and not staying there, what I always do is put, if you watch, I put a twist in it like that, and the twist helps to keep it down. I'll show you again. So just do a twist like that, and that'll sort of lock it down so it's deeper. Now some people do very few on the Aberdeen, but I like a decent knot to bury. And once you've finished it, the most important thing now is to pass it through, but pass it through and then through again. and then pull it up so it should all tighten nicely like that. Reasons we pass it through twice is ResearchGate have just done some investigation into sort of different Aberdeens and what's the perfect Aberdeen, and they found that if it's finished with a 2-pass, it stays together a lot more than a single pass, because the trouble with the Aberdeens are they can sort of unravel. So now we've got a little hole. The secret of burying the knot is that the needle glides through easily. So we need to be near our knot and we just start probing. Try and find. That sort of went fairly okay, not much resistance. Always lift over the skin so it's an exaggerated long way out. Oops. Okay, and then also very important, you pull on your thread, but the most important thing is using your forceps to push the skin. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of snapping, like that. So I've done a pull on this, but I used the forceps to push the skin that way. And if I hadn't done that, this probably would have snapped off and it wouldn't have buried. So it looks okay. So we'll just take that, trim it, and we're done.